And you know, they had all been to the Pacific. They knew where all the dance bars were and where the hookers were and all of this. And I was just I was a good little officer, trying to just do the right thing. But those guys were just totally wild. They took me some places I'll never forget, but I don't want to make that a part of this video. So we were out on tour of all these Pacific bases, but usually, it was so rare for a field unit to actually see and touch and talk to an engineer that everywhere we went, the commander of the wing, whatever it happened to be, whether it would be a C-130 wing or, some other type of airplane, they'd want to talk to me and show me their problems and ask my advice and ask me to approve this or that or whatever. It was a great opportunity for them, to solve some of their problems. And so, for me, the tour ended up not being so much about corrosion, but more like public relations and supporting, the units in the field. But one thing happened at Clark Air Base in the Philippines. They had a unit of C-130s. And commander asked me to go down and talk to go down to an airplane that they were having trouble with and talk to one of the mechanics. So I went down there, and when you're an engineer, you have to kind of get used to crawling around all over the airplane, on top of the airplane. Sometimes it's pretty scary. Sometimes, like on a C-141, you have to go to the very top of the vertical stabilizer and look at something, which is a long way off the ground, and you could be up there on a windy day and the thing is just moving around, and it can be a very scary thing. And also in the C-141, you have to go into, sometimes you have to crawl through what's called dry bays, which are basically very small tunnels that go through the center wing of the C-141, or it's totally dark, you can't see anything, you just kind of have to feel your way, and it's very, very claustrophobic. There's not room for more than one person to go in one direction in one of those very small tunnels. So you have to do all these things. But one thing I had never done was go into a fuel tank in an airplane wing that still had fuel in it. Because when airplanes arrive for depot maintenance at Robins Air Force Base, first thing they do is purge all the fuel out of it. There is no fuel. It still smells like fuel in there, but it's not wet. But at Clark Air Base, I was confronted with an airplane that still had fuel, at least puddles of fuel in the wing. It hadn't been totally purged. But there was nothing to do about it. There was a problem with the rear spar in the center wing of this particular C-130. There was some corrosion or maybe a small crack in the spar. And the center wing spar is a very, very, very important element of the airplane. It carries most of the load from the wings and distributes it throughout the airplane. So it's not something that can be ignored. Definitely an important problem that they were having. And I told the guy, there was a small, usually people who work in airplane wings are really small because they have to crawl through small places. You never meet a 6-foot guy who works inside of airplane wings. This guy was, maybe a little bigger than me, and maybe 5'8", 170, 180, something like that. He was an enlisted guy, maybe in E3 or something, and he did this every day. So he said he wanted to take me through the wing. And the problem, the access hole on top of the wing was in one place, but the problem in the spar was probably 20 feet away from that. So, we were going to have to crawl through the airplane wing, which had puddles of fuel in it, to look at this problem. And just the thinking about that was really giving me the creeps. So we both go through this tiny little access hole, and we're both crouched down or laying down. this one little area inside the wing, and he goes first. He moves, he scoots 20 feet away, except it's not quite a simple matter because between me at the access hole and the problem 20 feet away are a series of cross braces, diagonal cross braces, which are attached to the ribs that go through the wing. And each one of these triangular areas was maybe no bigger than that, maybe even smaller. It was really a tight squeeze trying to get through them. But he managed it. He did it every day. And so he got there, and it was my turn to follow him.